this week's edition of Think Big. I'm your host, Akia Garnett. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to be covering two important topics today, topics that I know are going to be interesting to you, especially if you are like me and have raised children. What you end up doing to help your children develop, especially as youth, is so very important. And we're coming upon summer, and that is such a big deal when it comes to finding the right camps, the right programs, and the right topics and things to pour into our children as they are enjoying their summer experiences. You know, they go back to school and they have to do a report or possibly stand in front of people and tell people exactly how much fun they had over the summer. And so it's very important. There's a lot of pressure on parents to find the right thing. You know, it's also important just for a safety perspective. Nowadays, there's just so many issues that are going on. So who we are going to have entrusted with the care of our children is so very important. And so I thought it might be a great opportunity to introduce two folks in the Washington, D.C., greater Washington, D.C. area who are both founders and running their own camp for young people. Our first show guest is Rob House, and Rob is founder of Camp Fit. Rob services the Prince George's County area. He's out in Bowie, and he and I are going to spend some time talking about the work that he's doing with Camp Fit. He's also a motivational speaker, so he's got some other hats that he's wearing, and so we're going to spend some time talking about that as well. So without further ado, let me introduce to some and reacquaint with others, none other than Rob House. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
So you're going to bring the fun because it's time to talk about children.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. How'd you get your start in this whole topic of children's support and things that you're tackling, such as obesity? That's a huge deal.
It is. Well, it helps that I'm a child still myself, you know? So, and growing up, you know, there are so many things that were missing.
Right.
And I recognized that if I wouldn't change my life. I wouldn't change anything. But I recognize some of the things that if I had a few mentors, a few other little just pros in my life,
right,
I might have turned out a little bit different. So I realized that you can build a program these days. You can, whatever you dream about, you can create.
Right.
So we wanted to create a program where kids could come have fun, but when they leave the camp, they can not only be in better shape mentally, but physically and spiritually.
That's awesome. I'm sure that parents are jumping up and down, excited to get their kids off the sofa.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
They put down the cell phones a little bit, or do you have activities where they're playing with their cell phones and jumping in the air at the same time?
Well, ever since Pokemon Go, you know, we try to incorporate what they like into what they need for a nice balance.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, more seriously, though, childhood obesity is a very sensitive topic to talk about. Obesity in itself and weight loss management is a very, sensitive topic, especially when you're dealing with youth. And we've just come into, the fact that we can have conversations with youth about being overweight. There was a time when you just let the kid develop. You didn't talk to them about those things. They were going to grow out of it. There wasn't some of the issues around, focusing on children's health regarding whether or not they're outside playing enough, whether or not they are, at a healthy weight and so forth. So for an actual program to be developed around that, I think that's a great thing. How did you actually come to the topic of tackling childhood obesity?
Well, about 10 years ago, my wife and I started our nonprofit called Worldwide Community. And the purpose of this was, again, to have after-school programs and summer camps specifically for kids to get in shape mentally, physically, spiritually. We'd have programs, mentors, and coaches come in to support that. But then we realized we want to really tackle this childhood obesity because what happens is the reason why 70% of America, 325 million people and growing, the reason why 70% is overweight and obese because they don't understand. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the tools. Well, children become adults.
Right. So
we realized if we could shift how children think and live, we could actually shift the future. That was kind of a really big deal. And of course, that impacts our own direct family, our own children.
Right.
You know, so realizing that it's really about information and the way you serve the information. So if we can get the right information, serve it the right way, we can get the results we're looking for.
Right. When Michelle Obama, former First Lady, was in the White House, one of her key initiatives in her in the earlier parts in the administration, was on, getting started.
Yep.
Right.
Let's move.
Let's move.
Yep,
And that, really created a wave in the nation
It did.
of healthcare programs. And it started some of those dialogues about healthcare and children. Did that inspire you at all?
It inspired me a lot. And I know that now that they're not as busy, I might have a chance to actually make that connection. I'm
Right.
excited about it because she's still doing it. She's passionate about fitness and wellness for young people. And so, yeah, that definitely inspired me, gave me some ideas as well. And she had some programs incorporated into the school system
Right.
that I partner with as well.
That's awesome.
So we're moving and growing and trying to connect with anybody with a like mindset.
That's awesome. So tell us specifically about the camp. How is it structured?
So the children, they come in. So it's Monday through Friday, just like a summer camp, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the kids come in, and let me give you a typical day. They come for the first 20 minutes. They walk for about a mile. They can wear their iPods. They can be by themselves, but their goal is to get a mile in the first moment they get in there, to open their mind, clear their mind, meditate, think, and a little exercise as well.
Right.
Then we come in and we sit down and we do our goal setting. They all have goal books where they have their life journal, and they have the mid goals, short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals.
Okay.
So we sit down and we go over that.
Right.
Because when do you do that? Who
Right.
does that?
That's great.
And so it gets them thinking about, okay, I can create a goal and actually hit it.
Right.
And not just about losing weight. Maybe it's joining the football team or whatever it may be.
Right.
And so we do that, and then throughout the rest of the day, we have maybe a chef come in and do a cooking instruction.
That's great.
And they'll be able to take the recipe home with them.
Yeah.
And then we follow up to make sure that they're doing the recipe at home, because we get feedback when they come back. 'Cause
Yeah.
we want them to cook the recipe at home
Wow. As children.
as children.
That's great.
Get involved with the parents, and that gets the parents thinking like, okay, I know I sent my kid to this camp, but
Yeah.
now the camp's coming home.
Yeah.
So that we have this indirect and direct impact on
Right.
the whole household, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I mean, and parents have to get off the sofa too, right?
Yes,
So
at least for a second, right? And
Right.
It's actually been really good. The results and feedback from the parents being engaged has been very positive. And so throughout the day, we'll have a variety of exercises. We'll have field trips, and we'll have different presenters that come in, from personal trainers to entrepreneurs, to chefs, to you name it. Anything we can think of that we believe will help move the needle in the mindset of the young person.
wow. When did you start to see the impact that you are, creating in youth? Because after the summer,
Yeah.
they go, and I'm sure you find ways to keep in touch with
Yeah,
them, and
yeah.
maybe you have maintenance plans and so forth.
Yeah.
There are some, especially when you're going, to weight loss programs, they'll try to keep you engaged
Yeah.
after you've met your goal. So how do you, measure that impact that you are creating?
And so the measurement on the weight side, we have the weigh-ins. We have the weekly
Right.
weigh-ins,
Right.
and then we have the journaling, which the journaling, whatever you can journal, you can measure, you can change. So that way they have their food log, they have their goal log, and then when they first come in, they have a survey they take, a regular survey where we ask them some questions just on their perception. At the end of the summer, we give them the same survey, and you can see how the mindset has shifted. Same questions, we didn't change anything, they changed it. So we have that measurement. We have the mile. Now watch this. 99% increase of drastically. And on week 1, everybody runs a mile. Week 8, everybody runs the same mile, and everybody crushes their first time.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's not like we train for a mile. We just train endurance mentally, physically, spiritually. You just become stronger all the way
Yeah.
around.
So then for, the weight, and again, that's more of a physical, that's outwardly reflected. You can see that.
Right.
But, much of weight loss, losing weight, living healthy, eating healthy, is psychological. How do you all help children overcome those psychological barriers?
So, it's very important to know, and this is why the goal setting part is the biggest, the hugest, the most important imperative aspect to me. when you have a goal and you commit to it, and when you set the goal, not mom set it for you or coach, when you have a goal and you then you believe you can hit that goal, it changes your perspective. It's really all about perspective. Psychological, your psychology is based off what things mean to you.
Right.
And so we can change what things mean to them. The way you change that was changing how they approach their goals and making things important. And so if it's important to me, I'm going to do a much better job in sticking to it. So that's what we do. We just find out, and each child is different, but through a process of communication and just our sessions, we find out what makes you tick. What are you excited about? All right. And why do you want that? Okay. What do you got to do to get that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do that. In that kind of spirit, instead of, okay, you got to do this.
Right.
You need to do this. Same information delivered a different way.
And what ages do you tend to work with?
Middle school and high school. This year, we're opening it up for elementary.
Wow, that's great. So getting them young is so very important. That's awesome.
Middle school's the best age. High school, they're already grown.
Right.
They know everything.
Their habits are already in place.
Yeah, it's in place. It's like trying to, but they still have results. But middle school, they're like open and they're ready to absorb. Elementary, they're not as mature yet, but
they got a lot of energy.
Right.
But the middle school have a lot of energy too.
They do. They do. And they're so open.
Right.
They're so open and ready to be something. And so that's the time where you can really prime them.
That's awesome. So, okay, so you have several gifts, though. I mean, you play that role, but you're also a motivational speaker, and I know that goes hand in hand with running a fitness camp. You are doing other things out there as well.
Yes.
Tell us about your motivational speaking.
So, honestly, my purpose in life, I know, is to inspire people to be their greatest self, because it makes me happy. And so if I can inspire you to be your greatest self, I feel good, okay? And so it kind of morphed into first me becoming a pastor and preaching at different churches and then different youth groups and then high school graduations and then corporations were calling me in. So I said, okay, well, this is great. So I had an opportunity. Then I wrote a book called Purpose Search because, again, finding your purpose, knowing what you want to do in life, that's what just makes life easier. Right. To know where you're going. Even if you can't get there just yet, at least you know where you want to go.
I mean, I've had the purpose conversation for so many years now. It's not easy for people to find that.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Because life moves fast and you got responsibilities and then the day is over.
So then when it comes to you being, a supporter of youth, you being in the faith-based community, you being a motivational speaker, which do you identify with first? Like if you had to raise your hand, according to some question, are there any of this, type of people in the audience, what would you raise your hand to?
I would probably say I'm a creator. I'm an inventor. That wasn't even on the list, right? But I feel like, you have to be able to morph. And because my gift of creating, from music to speaking to programs, it's all about creating. And I believe the real good creating starts with you understanding the problem you're trying to solve. And so you have a problem, you find a solution, and then you create the path. And so I'm a creator. I'm an inventor.
And do you have any tips for parents who are in this place right now where they are looking through all sorts of websites to see which camp they're going to sign their children up for?
And so, honestly, it has to be important. If it's important, and not just, even if your child, let me tell you something, it's very, you can be tricked if you even look. Like, you look at me and say, oh, he's in shape. There's a lot of people that are not healthy. Right. Your outer appearance, really, it's a misconception. You want your kid to be healthy mentally, physically, and spiritually. I would say the number one thing is for parents to walk with their kids, to do something active with them, go to the park, do something where you're not just sending them out, but you're engaging in it. And you'll find out it's an amazing time, actually. Right. For our camp, right, we try to have weekly events where the parents and kids get together, whether it's for, like I'm doing a 5K this week I'm doing a 5K. But we do events all the time where it's just something in the community, but it gets the parents and kids out together moving. So I would just say, first for parents, here's the best tips I can give them. Walk with your kids, right? And then gauge the amount of sugar that you're giving them. Those are the two biggest things. If you move, right, with them, and then gauge the amount of sugar that they are intaking. Right. This is
I mean, and knowing what sugars are, right? I mean, that's such a, that one, and fructose and lactose,
my
and
goodness.
The high fructose corn syrup and
Yeah,
all
right.
all those different things are, sometimes they're really sneaky.
Really sneaky.
Yeah.
Like G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle,
Right.
but the other half is doing it. So we got both halves. We know
Right.
it, and now we do it.
So we have just a few seconds. I want to talk a little bit about how far people are coming, because right now you're stationed in Bowie, right? In Prince
Right.
George's County?
Prince George's County, yep. And so, go ahead.
How far are people, coming and bringing their children?
Oh man, they're coming from all over the DMV. They're really coming. Like, we get a lot from DC, but mostly from Prince George's County.
Right.
But I've had hungry parents come from Virginia.
That's
Like,
great.
I got to do something right now to bring them out,
That's
because they're
great.
going to leave different than they came.
That's great.
100% of the time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rob. We're going to have Rob back on the show in just a moment. Stay right there. We'll be right back with Deshaun Robinson Chu. And we're back. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's edition of Akia Garnett. I am now joined in the studio by Deshaun Robinson Chu. Deshaun came on my radar quite a few years ago when my children, especially my daughters, they were younger, and I was looking for wholesome, fun, educational, and exciting summer camps for my children to participate in. And at this time, you were down in Stafford?
Started in Stafford.
Started in Stafford.
North.
Right.
Yes.
So you were down in Stafford at this time. At least that's where I was thinking
That was
of.
the connection.
Yes.
Yes.
At this time, we were living down in Prince William County. And so, yes.
Yes,
And so
okay.
This was a great opportunity for my children to not only spend time learning and doing something fun in the summertime, but also learning about something that's so very important, which is financial literacy. Deshaun Robinson Chu is the founder of SheEO, and she called herself a SheEO as well.
Yes.
So without further ado, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
So what is SheEO, and why is that different than CEO?
Well, a CEO is a chief executive officer, a term that we are all very familiar with. Right. We actually, when we talk with our young ladies, start out by explaining what that is, because many of them surprisingly hadn't heard of a CEO. Mm-hmm. They've heard the letters but didn't know what it was. And so we go through explaining what chief executive officers are. They're leaders, they are in charge. And then we ask them, what is it like to be a girl in charge?
Right.
And so then we remove the C and add the she for CEO.
Awesome. So tell us about the work you do with youth, particularly the school-age girls.
Well, we are a social enterprise that prepares girls. And I did say girls. A lot of people, the first thing they ask is, where are you and what women do you work with? And I have to tell them, we prepare girls for business leadership and entrepreneurial success. We say we empower the CEO in every girl. And with that, we prepare them to take steps in business leadership, entrepreneurial success. We say that we want them to be change agents and change managers. Mm-hmm. And we do that through our camps, our classes, clubs, and now coaching. Great. For girls.
Wow, really? How young are you starting with coaching?
We start all of our programs with girls as young as 8.
Oh, wow.
The coaching program, as long as they have a product or a business.
Listen, I was in my 30s before I had my first coach. You've got kids having coaching at 8?
That's right.
Oh my gosh, you're putting them so far ahead of the game.
I hope so. We just want them to, at the very least, see themselves as CEOs, because our society, what they see in the media, sometimes even with their peers and their classmates and in their school, they're not told that you can be a she-EO. Right. And that's our tagline, be a she-EO.
And do you find that term, because there are other folks I've heard use that term, I love that term, and it just shows that, you're just proud of the fact that you're in leadership, but you're also able to embrace that whole, concept of femininity.
Absolutely.
We're living in a different era now where there is a rise in, feminine pride, but, it's not always been that way. When do you remember the exact moment, or do you remember the exact moment when you knew that you needed to create this type of program?
Well, I think I thought about this growing up. I grew up, ironically, in an entrepreneurial family, but entrepreneurship was never discussed. Okay. And I guess it took the age and maturity for me to understand that there was a disconnect there, that no one really took my hand and talked about entrepreneurship as a career option,
right?
As a possibility.
So do you mean like saying you should, you can go into business for yourself?
Absolutely.
You have options.
Absolutely. No one told me that was an option.
Wow.
Even though I sold candy out of my backpack. I opened my mother's screen and made toys and buttons and accessories. No, they saw the characteristics, but for some reason that wasn't discussed. So I guess I look back and I think that there were signs, but it wasn't until I went to graduate school and I was a fellow at the George Washington Center for Entrepreneurship, and I think they've changed the name since then.
Right.
But while I was there, I started to see that there were a lot of people who really weren't embracing it. There weren't a lot of women in the program. I would go out into the community through AmeriCorps and work in the communities of DC. And then when I went on to work as the director of the Women's Business Center of Northern Virginia, there were a lot of women who came in, and there was one in particular, and I think this was my turning point, my aha moment.
Okay.
I spoke with a lady who was in construction. Her business worked as contractor for builders, and all of her employees were men. And I went to visit her office because we were counseling her business. And when I went to visit her office, I realized I hadn't received one of her business cards. So she gave me one while I was there in the office, and nowhere on the card did it say CEO.
Right. So what did it say?
Oh, it had her name. It had the name of her business.
Yeah.
It had the website,
so
the email, what she
owning
did.
That.
Exactly.
She wasn't owning that.
She was not owning it.
Yeah.
And when I asked her, when I called it out, I could see in her face, but then she said to me, and I remember to this day, I can't see myself as a CEO in this industry.
Right.
I can't see myself as a CEO because nobody will see me as that either. And I have to tell you, Akia, I almost cried in her office when she said that.
And she was the owner.
And she was the owner.
How about that?
Providing the jobs.
Oh my gosh.
Writing the paychecks.
So what would you say is your greatest challenge in your work right now?
I think the greatest challenge, most people when they hear about what we're doing with girls, how we want them to at least see themselves as entrepreneurs when they come into the camp. A lot of girls don't even know what CEO and entrepreneur is when they come to the camp. They just think that I'm going to be a boss or a leader, or sometimes parents just send them there because parents see the value, but the girl hasn't made the connection yet.
Right.
But we seem to be the only or one of the only programs that talk about business and entrepreneurship. You see STEM, girls in STEM,
Yeah.
and there seems to be this lack of connection between STEM and business leadership and ownership. And people are gravitating towards STEM. And I always say to people, if the young lady, girls in STEM, creates the app or innovates this new widget,
They got to sell it.
they got to sell it
Right.
or own it.
Yeah. Right.
And so they're either going to sell it to a business or they're going to start their own.
yeah.
And so there's this challenge for me in my communication and in messaging, and I believe it has to do with perception in the marketplace that entrepreneurship is really a valid career option.
So, and just going back to some of the things that you saw when you were heading up the nonprofit for women in business.
Yes.
What were some of the other traits that you saw in women? Because there are some, common things that are out there in terms of just not asking for the money, not feeling confident enough, to own your place in leadership in your business, and then just, the networking and things like that. What are some of the trends that you have seen, and what programs are you putting in place through the camp to make sure that you're addressing that early on?
Well, one thing I noticed, and we actually added a program because of it, was a lack of financial literacy or financial confidence. And eventually the parent organization added a women's financial center to address that because it was more than what we could do at the Women's Business Center. And so I tell parents, when you bring your young lady to our program, we're going to prepare the she to become the EO. And so in doing that, there's some personal development we have to do first.
Right.
Because a lot of what women, in terms of characteristics of what I saw and what we see, a lot of women aren't confident. They aren't confident in their abilities to manage money. They're not confident in their abilities to launch something and own something. They're not confident in their ability to step out and be independent.
Right. And it's there as we.
Right.
We are they.
We are they. And so now I'm noticing that I want to touch the girls early.
Right.
I heard you mention earlier that we need to reach them early. I believe that a lot of this is planted early.
Wow.
So we address confidence. We want them to stand up and speak and make sure they can shake hands and make
Wow.
eye contact.
Wow.
We address all of that early. Then we get to budgeting
Right.
and employee versus employer.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. So that's a very nice topic for a very early age. I bet
Yes.
you must be inspiring these young girls to get back out there and, really hold their heads up and look for opportunities for leadership. That's got to be awesome.
I tell you, there's a story that I always tell. Just people who know me probably getting tired of it. But my aha moment came in one of my earlier camps when we moved to the Loudoun and Fairfax area, Northern Virginia. And we had a young girl, I guess she was about 11 or 12. Her dad came to pick her up at the end of the day. And as Dad and I walked over to the table, she was crying. And I don't mean one tear. She was just having at it. So my first thought, as I heard you earlier, is what did we do to this girl? Is she okay? Was she bullied in camp? We were, was somebody not looking? So I gently asked her, I'm like, oh my gosh, Dad's here, but I want to make sure you're okay. And she looked up Akia and she said, I think I'm an employee.
Oh gosh.
And when Dad and I kind of turned, we didn't want her to see that we were almost laughing.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the things we want the girls to go through is walk through what this whole life journey looks like.
Right.
And we have a part in our camp where we talk about employer versus employee. And I asked her further, why do you feel that? And she said, I really like helping people. And I noticed in the organizational chart that there are different levels. And I want to help somebody be great. And she had a valid reason.
Right.
But she came to camp thinking she was a boss.
Right.
I'm going to own a business. She may change her mind in a few years, but at that moment, I knew that we were doing the right thing.
So as a result of the work that you're doing with them, and you mentioned earlier some of the tactical things when they start out, with you all, such as the confidence and speaking and things like that. But after your program, and they are finished, and do you do like a ceremony, a certificate ceremony or something like that? After that, what are those young girls able to do as a result of spending that time with your program?
So there are a myriad of things that they can accomplish. They can come to camp and simply have the experience and the exposure of understanding what is a business. We give them a problem to solve. We put them on what we call a startup team. Mm-hmm. So some girls just take that experience and now they are more aware. Other girls, and some of them even before camp, start their product or bring it. We had one girl make $11 selling her product at lunchtime during camp. And we encourage that. We don't discourage it. So sometimes they are encouraged to start or grow a business. And speaking of which, we have other programs now, the club and the coaching, because we've had parents come to us and say they were inspired in camp or they received more skills than they had before. And a lot of parents say, I don't know what to do with that, Coach Deshawn. So can you work with our girls? And so right now in our coaching program, we have 3 girls who have businesses.
Wow.
And we have one that has a product that is being patented.
Oh my gosh. Trademarked. Oh wow. So
she's 12.
Oh my. So are you bringing in attorneys and
yes.
other kinds of business experts?
And that's a part of the coaching program. So for the parents, the benefit is we have access to these specialists and to these professionals.
Awesome.
And I can't tell you, they get giddy working with these girls, the attorneys.
I'm sure.
And the mentors. Some of the girls don't have a mentor, so we find an industry mentor. Some come with a mentor.
Wow. That's awesome. Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's great. So that's got to feel good too that, the mentors are, kind of signing off on your program as well. That sounds like you're doing some amazing things. You're also active with other groups around the area that have to do with youth development, specifically young girls. What are some of those?
And so I myself and my other coaches, we often are asked to speak or to mentor, and we've worked with organizations like Girl Scouts, Jack and Jill, and we will go and provide workshops and mentoring to those organizations. I've also been asked to come and speak to high schools and churches and just talk about, we call it entrepreneurship, the forgotten career.
Right.
And so put it out in the atmosphere and talk about what's going on with entrepreneurship, how women are growing, starting businesses, but they're not growing them,
right.
And how they're not getting the venture capital, and why is that? I just spoke at a high school on Monday, and it's funny. I started talking with CEO, just like you asked me, and the teacher said, "Please explain to them what a CEO is." So we go out and just put this message into the community through the organizations that I mentioned.
And then you mentioned earlier on the financial literacy part of it. Yes. How much time and how granular does that get when it comes to the basic things like credit and, balancing a checkbook and, if anybody still has a checkbook, but, balancing a checking account or not being in overdraft and, some of those things.
And the level of detail is different between the programs. In our camp, because we have such a short amount of time with them, we introduce budget and credit, and they actually work through that. And I don't want to give away all the secrets, but they work through that in our startup program, where they're starting a business together. In our academy, we tend to get more detail. In our academy, we always start out with a definition, with the idea of the definition, and then an activity. It has something hands-on. So they get more into the budgeting and money and financial literacy in the academy. Club is more where they talk about what they do at home.
Right.
We send out a newsletter to parents saying, how can you keep CEO going all year? Talking about jobs and money at the dinner table. What did you spend money on today, and how much did that cost you, and how did you feel about that?
Right.
So we get into the details at different levels with each program.
And so earlier we talked about some of the things that you have introduced, and such as your coaching and other programs. What do you see as the future of your program?
Well, this year we are launching new locations, Virginia Beach, Atlanta.
Wow. And
one of my coaches recently moved to Dallas, so we're looking to launch CEO Dallas. And so the opportunity is out there in different areas. I'm always amazed at how many young people are not financially literate. And when I say that, I mean they don't know what a CEO is. They never heard the word budget.
Right.
They don't have a checking account. They may be 17 or 18. And so I know there's work to be done elsewhere, and now I'm just trying to find the right coaches to do it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congratulations to
Thank
you on launching a multi-state footprint. That's got to be awesome. Are you going to be traveling around and helping to develop the programs in those
I
areas?
will. I will be helping to develop the coach and the program in that area. Everything right now is packaged in mobile programming.
Sure.
So it is copy paste. We just take that program and replicate it in a new city.
That's great. Now, earlier I said that, I've heard other people use the term CEO.
Yes.
Yes. I'm going to ask you, did you coin that term?
I have a trademark on CEO. The trademark, as you know, and we actually have a class and a workshop in our camp and academy that talks about intellectual property.
Right.
And so the trademark is specific to much of what we do with a little bit of expansion. Some of the other usage that I found are in other industries, but I have found that it's going to be interesting to see if this word becomes commonplace like Xerox does, because it is such a moniker to describe what females should be and are becoming.
Yeah.
And so that's
well, as I said, the rise in feminine pride is certainly continuing to grow. We've seen a lot of that over the last 12 months. And it could only, help that word become even more of a household term.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that girls will learn a lot about before, they're even in elementary school. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be fabulous. I had a call one day, and grandma, she said, I'm grandma of a daughter. She said, I'm grandma of, and she gave the name. And I said, how old is your granddaughter? She said, 2. I said, we don't work with 2-year-olds yet, but I'm so happy that you are progressive enough to think about us this soon. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, Deshawn, we have just a few moments, and then we're going to bring our first guest back on, and we're going to have a quick little panel discussion. But before we do that, just tell us quickly about the ways in which you got started. How did you get your start in this in the first place?
In CEO?
No, just in the business work that you're doing.
Wow. Well, as I mentioned, always had a business of some sort or a product. I was always selling pretty much from preschool. I have an uncle who used to, whenever he saw me, would say, what are you selling now?
Yeah.
And so I was always interested. I went to school for business. I went into marketing. And then graduate school, when I became a fellow at George Washington, we would go around and participate in activities in the community. And I really credit AmeriCorps and my participation with AmeriCorps and their economic development program as introducing me to community engagement, empowerment, and to community programming. And it was there that I started to draft the first business plan that would become CEO.
Wow. Well, Deshawn, thank you. Stay right there. We'll be right back. And we're back. Thank you so much for staying with us for this episode of Think Big. I'm now joined by both of my guests on the stage. Again, this is Deshaun Robinson Jew and also Rob House. And we're going to go through just a couple questions. I thought that it would be helpful to bring both of you back on just because these are such important topics, when it comes again to childhood obesity and whether or not we have enough of that going on in the country to really help your cause on a much more, wider scale approach. And then on female entrepreneurship and ownership of business and confidence and all of those things and how you can take advantage of that in a summer program. It's how many weeks are they giving summer now? Are they saying like 12 weeks or 11 weeks or something like that? It's a short period of time, but there's a lot of opportunity there to feed into them what you're feeding into them. So first question is for you, Rob. Do you think there are any national programs that can be put in place to help your cause?
Well, like we talked about earlier, Let's Move is one of my favorite. Mm-hmm. I love them anyway, and what they're doing not just in the community but in the school system. And I think especially with all the gym classes being cut in half and recesses being cut down to 3 minutes, right. I think this is super imperative to partner with organizations that are already in the school system. So Let's Move is my favorite.
Oh, that's great. So then are you seeing children divorce themselves a little bit from technology in order to get excited about your program?
Not necessarily.
No?
No, I think the cell phones and everything is still connected to just like us.
Yeah.
But like I said, with a good balance, healthy balance, you can find a way to still empower them with their cell phones in their hands.
Right. And what about your cause? Any national programs that could be put in place to help your cause?
Well, what I would like to do or see are some of the national women's business organizations take an interest in girls or partner with CEO to do so. Last summer, we had a camp at a Chamber of Commerce, and there are chambers of commerce across the country, so that's an opportunity for us. They do great work, chambers of commerce, women's business centers, and many of them have told me that their work really takes over what they do. So there needs to be organizations like SheEO or other organizations that work with girls like Girl Scouts to really partner and grow this initiative for everybody.
Rob, for you, what is the greatest controversy that you feel you have to work very hard to overcome?
Well, we are in the information age, which simply means there's a lot of information. It's not all good. Parents are very overwhelmed with information, which keeps us from making good decisions.
Right.
So our biggest hurdle is getting our communication through all the other information and getting parents and people to actually take action. So it's basically swimming through all the other information. They got TV shows, books, and they're getting flooded. But again, getting back down to what is your goal, right, and let's create the roadmap to get to it. So that will be our biggest hurdle, just getting inside people's heads that have so much stuff already in them.
Right. And what about yours? What big issue do you find yourself having to continuously tackle just to do what it is that you're doing with young girls?
The biggest issue I've found are going into communities that don't see entrepreneurship as a viable option for them. There was a community I reached out to, and they loved the concept of the program and asked me to tweak it, right, because they thought the young people in their community would never see themselves as CEOs. And that made me so sad. And so I need to go out. I feel like there's a need, and it challenges me, but it's also a hurdle, because changing perceptions, getting people to see themselves differently, it's challenging when they have society, when they have family history, when they have years of being an employee or being told that they don't matter and they can't do.
Wow. What is the biggest misconception that you feel people have about the program that you have? Because earlier you said, and this is true, your weight really isn't a great indicator of your health. What is that big misconception or the greatest misconception that you feel like you have to work hard to overcome?
Well, people, they don't necessarily care about their health. They don't really care that much. They care if something's hurting, or they have to go to the doctor. But it's not a real big, top. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. It's kind of like, okay, because you can get away with eating whatever you want and doing whatever you want until something goes wrong. So the misconception is that you're okay just because you're not hurt or not dying or not sick.
Wow.
And you'll see a dramatic difference just by changing your diet. And I don't mean eating leaves and stuff like that. I mean just cutting back some of the sugar, cutting back some of the bread, and maybe implementing a little bit of movement. You'll see how you think better, feel better, and just are better.
Right, and you're helping people understand that whole concept of
Yeah.
wellness.
Wellness.
Right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then for you, Deshaun, what is that biggest misconception that you feel like you have to constantly help people overcome?
That entrepreneurial skills are everyday skills,
Right.
and transferable skills.
Uh-huh.
I have parents say, well, I don't think my child is an entrepreneur. And I would say, do you want your child to be innovative, to be an independent thinker,
Yeah.
to understand how to speak to people and how to speak in front of people?
Right.
Do you want them to be successful and understand that goal setting leads to creating a plan, leads to being successful? And then they say, well, yeah. So if they can just get over the term entrepreneur,
Right.
get over the term CEO, and understand that we are an empowerment program, I think things will look a lot different.
I love that.
Is there anything we left out that we should have covered?
Be
That
a
we
sh-
could have covered.
be a CEO.
Yeah, be CEO.
Be a CEO.
And so if you're a father out there, you can work with your daughter. Of course, if you're a mom out there, you can work with your daughter. Call up Deshaun. Deshaun, give us contact information in terms of how they can get in touch with
Sure.
you.
We are found online at beasheo.com, on all social media platforms at beasheo, DOTCOM, and 886 my CEO.
Awesome. And Rob, anything that we could have covered?
Well, Can't Fit is also a TV show.
Great.
We turned it into a TV show. It's on DirecTV, Apple TV, Roku, 6 years running strong. And the reason why we did that, because we realized that through multimedia, we can reach millions of people. And so now it's in 121 countries.
Excellent.
And so you can go to can'tfit.tv to sign up for the program, to find out what network it's on, how you can watch it, how you can be a part of it, and how you can maybe implement some of these things we're doing in your own home. Even if you just do a little bit, just sprinkle a little bit every now and then.
Awesome. And your applications processes for your camps, you have deadlines, or their fees, all those kinds of things?
We're currently taking registration for camp this summer, and you don't have to be in the DMV area to join our camp. Again, we are launching in Virginia Beach. We have a camp date in Atlanta. And if you are not in one of those areas, we want to hear from you. I have parents who contact me online, say, when are you bringing CEO to Philadelphia,
Right.
to New York? So reach out to us online. We have a contact form, and I'd like to know where you are so we can bring CEO to you.
Okay. And your application processes?
It's online as well. We also have an app that we're building, so we can actually, you don't have to be in the same city as us or state.
Right.
We got the internet now.
So that virtual experience.
Yep, virtual
That's
experience.
Awesome.
We can find a way to still give you the plan, the process, so you can implement it again in your home. But if you want to email us, info@can'tfit.tv, and then someone will respond within 24 hours, and we'll get the ball rolling.
Awesome. You've been watching Think Big. I'm your host, Akia Garnett. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can find out more about this show and see past episodes at akiagarnett.com/Think Big. Send in your topics and ideas. If you've got a show guest that you'd like to see me interview, let me know about them as well. You can drop me a line on that website. You can also find me on social media. I'm all over at Akia Garnett. Send me a message, DM me, whatever way you need to get in touch with me, you can. And we will certainly respond and see how we can create some visibility around other things that you are doing out there in the world. Again, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.